G'day, my name's Jordan, and welcome to Beyond the Box, the series where we document and map out modern sound system culture in Australia. For this episode, I have had the wonderful privilege of speaking to Adrian Hough of Adrian's Wall Sound System and Fiona Byrne of Housewife's Choice Sound System. For the 14 years Adrian's Wall has been operating out of Melbourne, his impact on Australia's sound system scene cannot be understated. His attitude of sharing information and using his platform to guide newcomers to becoming part of the scene has helped the community as we know it today grow and flourish. Alongside him is Fiona Byrne, better known as Miss Fee of Housewife's Choice Sound System, Australia's only all-female DIY sound system. A veteran DJ and long-time radio host, Miss Fee has brought her own spin on sound system culture through Housewife's Choice Sound. Utilising an all-around approach, rooted in reggae and dancehall, Housewife's Choice Sound System has built a diverse community around themselves. Using community radio, Fee has helped to reach new audiences and young listeners and invite them into the culture. For Beyond the Box number 3, we will be exploring the backgrounds of two of the most integral players in the growth of sound system culture in not only Melbourne but wider Australia, and be taken back through the history of this city's exponentially growing scene, told through the lens of one of the pillar events organised by Adrian, Forward Ever. Hello, my name is Jordan. Welcome to Beyond the Box, the series where we document and map out Melbourne's sound system culture. And today we are joined by the wonderful Adrian and Fee of Adrian's Wall Sound System and Housewife's Choice Sound System. How are you guys this evening?
Yeah, good. Enjoying it. Relaxed.
Beautiful. Lovely to hear. So I'll start with Adrian and go into your background a little bit. So where does your relationship to sound system culture begin for you?
Big question. So the first sort of fundamental bit would have been Notting Hill Carnival 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Sunday, Monday, Notting Hill, and I saw Channel 1 were the one that really blew me away. And after seeing Channel 1, I decided I had to build a sound system. So 2 days later, I had 5 sheets of wood and 2 18-inch drivers, and
Beautiful.
That's where we started. So yeah, Channel 1 was the really the start of it all for me. That was the first time I ever saw a sound system played. Obviously, Notting Hill's a massive street party. It's the second biggest party in the world after Rio Carnival. And yeah, it was a life-changing moment. It was one of those bits where you like rock up and you're like, wow, completely blown away by the whole thing. And then I knew that that's what I had to do. I did have knowledge of sort of reggae music. Before then, I'd been in and around ska punk and the ska scene for a very long time, from like early teenage years. And I would have been 23, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it really. I was just then and I was like, I'd kind of heard about it and whatever, but it was the first time I experienced it and was like, yeah, bosh, we got to do this.
Yeah, beautiful. So then what is your background in events management? Were you organising gigs before you built Adrian's Wall, or was the rig the starting point?
So the first kind of party I put on was for my 15th birthday. That was like the first time I ever kind of really organised anything with bands and stuff. And I was quite heavily involved in like the ska punk scene as a teenager. Like everyone I knew played in bands. We all had bands. We were all just sort of milling around, and there wasn't a lot to do in the town I grew up in. So music was kind of one of the outlets. So we'd like go and hang out at band practice. Like a friend had a rehearsal space, so we'd all go and hang out there and stuff like that. So I was involved with it. I wasn't really super serious with it until the sound system stuff started.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of kind of traveling around and putting on parties, but they weren't ever at the same level that we did once we got the sound system going. But then again, when we started with the sound system, it wasn't anything major. It was like, the first gig was we hit up a guy who owned like a landlord of a pub, and we're just like, it's Notting Hill Carnival this weekend. Can we do a party on Saturday night in your pub and bring our sound system? And he was like, yeah, cool. And we didn't get paid, and it was just an excuse for us to go play our records somewhere.
Yeah.
And just hang out and like that kind of like people came along and had a good time. And then it was like, right, so you're going to come back next month. And we weren't planning to. And then, we went back the next month and the next month and the next month. And gradually it got to the point where when we were playing at the pub, you couldn't get in. There was 150, 200 people coming each month. And we were lucky enough that the guy who owned the pub was pretty good with paying us. So we didn't have to charge entry. And then we used that money to be able to get artists to come down and play, people like Dubba Tears and Charlie P and Conscious Sounds and Bush Chemists and various Manasseh. That was a good one. Various people. I didn't really, I don't know. It's just kind of, it happened. It wasn't like a conscious decision to be like, I'm going to start putting on events now. It was just like, I probably ought to learn how to put a flyer together, and I probably ought to, go around and put them up in the local shops. And I've always been a firm believer in paper flyers as well.
Yeah.
Posters and flyers. Get them into shops, get them into record stores, give them out to people at shows, because that's what DIY punk stuff always did. And when I started in the kind of punk scene, it was before the internet was like widely available and you could just rely on Facebook and Instagram or whatever to advertise your event.
Yeah, cool. So then you say you sort of fell into building events and stuff. So when you did begin that, how did you begin to cultivate a community in your hometown?
I don't think it was a conscious decision. It just kind of happens. Like when you build something, like everyone I knew played in bands, and then there was a night that there was a guy called Eddie O'Toole, whose real name is Max, but everyone calls him Eddie, and then another guy called Jay, and they'd met each other in Carlisle, which is way up in the north of England, and they'd come to High Wycombe, which was the town I was living in, and they'd done an event called High Grade, which was like a reggae DJ night, like a vinyl reggae DJ night, and that's still going today in Wycombe. They still do it, and like we would go along to that because it was a party in our town. Our town was not like, it's a city, but it's a really small city. So there's not heaps of stuff going on, and you just hang out with other kind of musical people. And so you'd end up go to like a soul night or like particularly Northern Soul. There was a night called DRS that was like a Northern Soul night, and they had their community. And then we had the High Grade night, and then there was another night called Magnificent Sevens, which was like run by a guy called OJ, which was a different kind of musical styling. But again, it was all records. So we were all kind of record collector nerds. We'd all been buying records for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Because it was a time of physical media, like before MP3 was a thing. I mean, I remember MP3 coming out, and it didn't really change anything till I was in my 20s. So as a teenager, it just wasn't like, that wasn't a thing. You had to buy physical CDs or physical records. And so going out to parties, you just meet people who were sort of similarly inclined, whether they were into the same music or they were just music heads. And then people just start hanging out with people they like. There's a pub culture in the UK where you go to a pub and people will pop in, and you'll get communities based on different pubs and then the different music that they play. So like we had a pub called the Antelope, which played a lot of heavy metal. So all the metal kids went there.
Yeah.
So if you want to go hang out with the metal kids, you go to that pub. Whereas if you wanted to go to, say, the Hobgoblin, they'd play more folky stuff or more alternative, like reggae and dub. And or if you wanted to go listen to house music, you go to one of the kind of more clubby joints. And you'd gradually just meet people. And then it's all sort of naturally and organic. I don't think it's something that you can kind of be like, put like an advert up for a book club and we're going to talk about reggae music. It doesn't really work like that. It just kind of naturally happened. And yeah, like I said, we just kind of started putting on parties, and then people started coming. We never expected anyone to come. They just started coming. We did it because we just wanted to drink free beer at the time, because if you put an event on, you'd get access to the bar.
Yeah.
That's where it all started and how it kind of came to be.
Lovely. So then what spurred the decision to move to Australia?
That was economic. I am 100% an economic migrant who came here to steal jobs. And yeah, a lot of people, I don't know. Yeah, basically there was the GFC was a big thing in the UK. It didn't seem like it affected Australia as much as the UK. My brother was already here. He was living up in Brisbane, and he was telling me there was heaps of work available. Like, I got made redundant from my job, and couldn't find work. I was working as a microbiologist, and when you let 24 microbiologists go from one lab, there's not 24 more jobs for 24 more microbiologists, and I couldn't even get a job in a supermarket, like pushing trolleys, or which is the job I'd done when I was a teenager. It's just sort of post university, mid-20s. So I was just doing sound system stuff. I was doing a lot of drum and bass parties, and I was running my nights, and it was hard because there just wasn't any income anywhere. Cost of living, it's kind of like we've got now. The cost of living pressures have gone up, and I've got an Australian citizenship, so it's very easy for me to just jump on a plane, sell all my stuff, put my sound system in a container and ship it here, and head over here and just start working. And finding work here was super easy. And I'd been out to Australia before, mainly Perth. I hadn't really been to Melbourne as an adult. I'd been here as a kid to see family. But yeah, I kind of knew there was a reggae scene. And I knew that Harticle was doing dances, which is why I picked Melbourne, because at that point there were 3 sound systems operating. There was Earthshaker in Adelaide, Champion Sound in Brisbane, and Harticle in Melbourne. And the only one that was doing anything with any kind of proper regularity was Harticle, who was doing 2 nights a month. They were doing Wobble, which was a drum and bass dubstep party, and then Dub Club Melbourne, which was a roots dance, which is what I was used to playing. So it made sense to come here.
Yeah.
And that was right at the very, very end of 2011.
Right. Okay. So then what was the scene like back when you moved here in 2012? You were mentioning Harticle doing the dances. Was there much else going on with sound systems specifically? Reggae? More?
Sound system wise, there was nothing. Yeah. There was basically just Harticle. So there was Wobble and Dub Club Melbourne. Yeah. And that was it. In terms of reggae, there was More Fire, which was happening at the Deep 11 or the Mercat. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
And then there was a night called Pressure Drop, which was happening at Laundry. And those were like the 3 regular kind of reggae-related events. So they had, one was the first Saturday, one was the second Saturday, and one was the third Saturday of the month. And then the fourth Saturday, somebody else could put on an event, but they were few and far between.
Yeah.
And that was really it in terms of reggae in Melbourne. I can't remember anything else that was going on around then. Yeah, I think that was it really at the start. And then later on there came events like Funky Kingston and a couple of other kind of regular reggae parties, and like obviously the sound system started to build. 2012 was the year that the sound system started to build up. And we went from having 1 in 2011 to having kind of 5 in 2012. And that was quite a big year. I did know that before I came, I did know that a guy called Phil, we know him as Phil Decked because he was part of Decked Sound System in the UK. He'd come out here and he was building a sort of 12-volt solar-powered sound system that I don't think finished until, I think they finished it in May or June of 2012. So my system had already arrived by then, and I think they did their first gig in June or May or June 2012. And that was kind of slightly more PA. It wasn't like a roots reggae sound system. It came from more of a free party background and had a kind of different ethos and different music. Very much more hip hop that they were playing at that point in time. Although now they play anything. Yeah. As a lot of the sound systems have done, they've kind of evolved and gone on to other bits. But yeah, at the start, it was Harticle, and that was it.
So then, how were the first few years of organising For Whatever? And what were the audience's reactions at the time? And who was actually showing up to these parties?
So For Whatever is something I started in the UK. So I ran 2 events in the UK. The first one was a monthly night at my local pub, which was called the Hobgoblin on the High Street in High Wycombe, in the back garden. And that was a free entry kind of night, and we'd get paid 100 quid or 150 quid from the bar. And we'd use that money to book people we wanted to see.
Yeah.
And we basically made no money on any of it. And then I really wanted to bring Channel 1 to High Wycombe with their sound system and then play sort of against, in inverted commas, them with my sound system.
Yeah.
So I booked a venue called Whammer, which was used to be a motorcycle shop, but it was called the Wycombe Academy of Music and Arts.
Yep.
It lasted about 2 years, I think, before it went under. And I was looking for a name, and I called it For Whatever. And it was basically the name that I used then for events that had 2 sound systems at.
Right.
So I did 3 of those in the UK. The first one was with Channel 1 in November of 2010. The second one was with a sound system called Operation Sound System, who are from Preston in the very north of England, who've got some great records out on 10-inch. That was in April of 2011. And then the third one was Abashanti in, I think, October. Yeah, I think October 2011.
Yeah.
And so those were the 3 For Whatevers that we did in the UK. And then that was kind of like a brand name that I had. And then when I moved here, Derek was doing a Renegade event as part of the Sydney Road street party, which is the first Sunday in March. And he... by sort of 2013, we had a couple of sound systems built. So we had Rogue Magnetic that were there, and then DIY happened to be... We approached this pub called the Noise Bar, which is now the Railway Hotel in Brunswick, right next to Brunswick train station. And they used to have this big shed on the side, which isn't there anymore. So we'd arranged to do... We called it Sydney Road Sound Clash. And it was meant to be Adrian's Wall and Rogue Magnetic playing sort of 2 sound systems in one room in the Noise Bar, in the big sort of shed that they had. And then it happened that DIY had been in there on the Saturday night and their speakers were still set up. So we just managed to like call some people like Fee to come down and DJ on it. I can't even remember who played at that party, to be perfectly honest, because it was so long ago. And it was free entry, and I think we did donations because our friend Lewis Marnell had just passed away.
Yeah.
Who's a pro skateboarder who had a little 12-volt wheelie like bicycle sound system that was dope. And then that was super successful. We had like 1,000 people come through the venue. We sold out the bar. They ran out of booze. You know, they were super happy with us. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, so that was so successful that they were then like, are you going to come back and do another one? And we were like, yeah, cool. Let's organize something and put it together. And then I was like, right, if I'm going to put this together, then I ought to come up with a name for it. And we decided to call it For Whatever. And at that point was when I used the 3 in England I called For Whatever, A Night of Roots and Culture, because it was very much a reggae dub UK sound system vibe, what we would call roots and culture music. Whereas when we came to doing it at the Noise Bar, I changed the name to For Whatever, a celebration of Soundsystem Culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I did that was because it wasn't going to be just like roots and culture music. So Rogue Magnetic were more of a hip hop sound. And at that time, trap was a big sound. You know, this is 2013. That was like a big sort of thing, and footwork as well was a big thing in the kind of hip hop MCing scene. And they were all into that. And I think the first one we did was me and Echo Chamber, which was Echo Chamber's first dance in the big hall. In the front room, we had Rogue Magnetic, and then in the back room, we had DIY Hi-Fi. So we had like a hip hop room, a carnival room that had like jungle, drum and bass, dubstep, and a bit of dancehall and stuff. And then we had roots and like a sound clash in the big room. And we did another party there then in 2014, which tied up with the Sydney Rose Street Festival, which was YT. We brought YT over from the UK. I'm pretty sure that was 2014. And that was like the next For Whatever. So the whole time that had been going on, Derek had been doing Dub Club Melbourne at what was called the Night Owl, what is now called the Sub Club. And he moved away, went up to Mullumbimby, and at that point I started to do events at what was then the Night Owl. And it was always bringing two sound systems together to play. That was always been sort of the goal of For Whatever, is to kind of bring sound systems together. Because that's what it is. If you go to a dance in the UK, it's like 3 stacks normally. It's like Abashanti, Channel 1, Iration Steppers, and they'll play 2 tunes each on rotation all night, and that's the vibe. And I wanted to bring that vibe to here. So we were doing that at the Sub Club. And we ran there pretty much until COVID. And then obviously COVID shut everything down. And then some things happened with the Sub Club where it changed owners and bookers and things, and they didn't want sound system in the venue anymore. So we had to find another venue. So we did one party at the Industreak, which was the Housewife's Choice launch party 4 years ago, 2021. With Goodies and Housewife's Choice. And then there were some various things that meant that we couldn't use that venue again. Some noise issues, and they had their dB level reduced, even though we stayed within it. They had it reduced to a point where we couldn't really do sound system parties there anymore. And that event, we'd managed to sell, I think, 550 tickets, something like that. And that was enough for us to then approach the Croxton and be like, hey, we've got this party, we've sold this many tickets, you're a big room, can we do this? And then the way things worked with all the lockdowns and stuff, we managed to luck out, and the date that we had to keep pushing the date back, you know, we push it back a month and then push it back a month, push it back a month. But the date that we picked was the day after all the restrictions were released. So it was like the day that like Friday, Daniel Andrews came on telly and was like, dance floors will open at midnight.
Oh my
and we were like, our party's on Saturday, tomorrow. Let's go. And that one just went bananas. And I think we had maybe 900 people.
Oh my, at the Croxton.
At the Croxton.
Jesus.
Which is a big show. And now we've done 6, and we're just coming up to doing the 7th show at the Croxton. Doing them kind of every 6 months-ish. Obviously, over COVID, there were a bit bigger gaps because of the things. But yeah, I mean, we've sold out, I think, 4 of the last 6 or 5 of the last 7 parties or something ridiculous. And the scene keeps growing, and, you know, keep booking different sounds and being able to bring sounds from out of town. It's all a thing I'm very big on, is trying to bring as many, like, give people an opportunity to play their sound systems and play their sound systems for themselves. You know, when I book the people who are playing at For Whatever, I go, right, I'll book your sound system. If you want to book DJs or you want to book a lineup or whatever, that's entirely up to you. You guys, you need to pick the people who best represent your sound and what you guys are trying to put forward. And that's why it does vary a bit with the kind of sound. You know, you might get a sound that's a bit more dancehall orientated. You might get a sound that's way more steppers and a lot harder. You might get in the drum and bass room like a pure junglist sound, or you might get like a straight jump up and it get a bit cheesy. But it's down to the crew that's playing. And I don't want to interfere with that, because I think that the thing that makes sound systems so powerful and so expressive is that they are all different. They're not cookie cutter. They're not like going and buying a bunch of speakers that you get from a shop like Store DJ or somewhere like that. It's the individuality of each sound that gives it the character, and that's what makes them special. And you need to celebrate that. It's not just a case of renting a sound system and then putting a lineup of DJs on it. You know, I could go and book. There's loads of DJs I want to book, but because I never book DJs to play, I never get to get them on my show, which kind of sucks. But yeah, for whatever, that's how we got to where we are now. And it's still going great guns. Like, I'm amazed, genuinely amazed at the support that we get for it.
Number 22, isn't it? Number 22?
I think this is 21. Yeah, this one that's coming up with Dubchasm is going to be the 21st one in 17 years.
Oh, wow.
So 20. When did we start? 2010 was the first one. 16 years. 21 shows in 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so they don't come around very often either. That's the thing, because it's a lot of work putting, like, organizing 3 or 4 sound systems.
Yes.
Organizing an international, you know, the promo schedule.
I think it's very much about quality, not quantity with For Whatever.
Yeah.
There's a reason you only put them on, roughly every 6 months?
Yeah. Yeah. I think if also you don't want to oversaturate the market. Like, I don't want to sound too sort of corporate. But like, if you put massive shows on all the time, then they lose the kind of specialness to them. And, you know, we have a small community around Sound System. We can't be doing 800 people dances every week. You know, that will come. 10 years time, we'll be able to do that. But as it stands at the moment, to do something of that scale every sort of 6 to 7, 8 months, it works. And then you can do smaller shows around that. But that's...
I think the sound system scene in Australia has been growing at like an exponential rate, but compared to the rest of the world, I think we are still very much in the infancy stages.
Yeah, we're really at the beginning.
Yeah. What's exciting?
It's super exciting.
Very exciting for it. So, I mean, speaking to a lot of people who are in the scene, there's always like a moment they talk about where it's like, oh, this is what it's all about, like a dance or a song played on a sound system. I would say it's probably yours, playing Hard Times by Pablo Gard.
Oh yeah, big tune.
That was my like, oh moment, like, oh, this is what it's about. And I want to know how you approached building Adrian's wall, and like, how did you design the boxes, and was it like exclusively dub and reggae that was inspiring the sound you wanted to create?
Okay. So when I started, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like, zero idea what I was doing. And the first scoops I built looked like a scoop, but didn't actually have internals in them.
Yeah.
So they were just a big box, and then there was like a panel down the front where the woofer went in, and then there was like a bit of board that went down, and it looked like a C. And it was crap.
Yeah.
And I took them to a party, and I blew both of them up instantly at the first party. They were rubbish. And I had no idea what I was doing. Because information wasn't super available like it is now. There were websites, so Speaker Plans taught me an awful lot. But yeah, when I started, I literally had no idea. And then we really started off with the first 2 scoops, which were crap. And then we bought a bunch of stuff. So we bought a PA, like a couple of single 18 subs and like 15 and horn tops. Just off eBay. And then my mate bought a couple of scoops off eBay that were 12-inch scoops, and we used those for ages. And then I found Speaker Plans, and they had a for sale section there, and I bought a couple of kick bins, and we incorporated those. And then I learnt what a crossover was. and how it all like kind of how the sound actually works, where you split the bass to the bass amp that then goes to the bass speaker, and the mids to the mid amp that goes to the mid speaker, and the tops. And we were doing the parties, and they'd got kind of to the point where they were completely full. Like you couldn't fit any more people into this pub every month. And we decided that we wanted to go bigger and better. And there was an event organised as part of the Speaker Plans community where we went up to Birmingham to a place called Samra's Working Men's Club in Walsall. And they set up, different people brought their scoops, their sub boxes. And basically you could bring 2 scoops. They had a guy called Ren from APS Sound, which is like a legendary sound in the UK from Southall, who do a lot of dub cutting and have been around. They build preamps and like very technically knowledgeable guy, very good ears, and he tuned the system. So they had this big mid top that sounded amazing. It was like an EAW KF 850 or something like that. You can tell I'm a nerd. And then they had pairs of scoops, and we set the pairs of scoops up. We like marked out a spot on the floor with tape, and I think we had 10 pairs or 11 pairs. And they played each pair, and then people voted, gave it like a score out of 10 for like depth and clarity, and we had a SPL meter, and we measured how loud they all were. And they were driven off a bridged Crest 9001 amplifier, which back then, this would have been 2009, back then would have been like pretty powerful. Like that's a serious amp back then. Nowadays that's nothing because you can buy 1 million watts from China for 20p. But yeah, we went there and we listened to all the different kind of scoops that people had, and the Hough, which is what I use still to this day, was the one that I liked the sound of the most. The one thing that really stood out for me was that it played all the notes. A lot of the scoops sounded very one-notey, where they'd play one, like if you play a bass line that goes like through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it plays all the notes, and like over a full octave, it would hit one note would be really loud, and the other notes would kind of sit back in comparison to that. And I wanted something that would play everything so that you could hear the fullness of the tune. And I'd been to quite a lot of dances by that point. I'd been going to like University of Dub, teachings in dub, sessions are like dub school in Bedford with Blacker Mix. And we'd travel the country, like we'd like go get in someone's car, and 4 of us would drive somewhere, and then we'd stay till 6 a.m. and then drive home when the sun's coming up on the way back from the party. And I'd heard a bunch of different sound systems, so I knew what I liked and what I didn't like. And I really liked Channel 1, the tonality of Channel 1. And so when we did that shootout, that's when I decided on Houghs. And then the rest of it really was just based around what designs were available. So the upper bass box I use is called an HD15. It's on Speaker Plans. It's completely available design. Above that, I got given a couple of 12-inch mids, and then I built 4 more. And they were like a Fane, out of the sort of Fane cookbook. And then I came over here, and then I progressed and got MT121s, and then I built a 10-inch above that. And I always preferred paper drivers for the kind of high mid. It's very easy to use a big compression driver, but I always like the sound of paper. It sounds a bit softer on the ears to me. And I've never liked the harsh treble, so I've always kind of gone for that kind of tonality. But really it was just about what was available to me. If I was going to do it all again, I'd do it completely differently. But it's a big sound, and I'm not going to rebuild it because that's way too much work. And I've played with it for a long time now. I probably had this configuration for 15 years in various forms. I know how all the boxes work. I know what they sound like, and I know how to get the tonality that I want out of them, which is the important thing with Sound System. A lot of people chop and change their stuff all the time, and they never get a result they're happy with because they haven't learned what they have can do. Because it does take practice. It's like if you bought, and even if you're a great guitarist, if you just pick up a brand new guitar that you've never played a guitar like that before, you're not going to be able to get the best out of it. You need to put some hours in. So
Yeah, they say the equipment is as good as the operator, basically. You could have the best equipment, but if you don't know how to operate it, there's no point.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, if you've built it over 15 years and like even it's got the characteristics that
Yeah.
it's got, and you know how to work it, then
Yeah.
definitely. No mugs, drugs, or thugs is on most posters.
All of my flyers, yeah.
Yes, all of your flyers. What is your opinion on the role of drugs in the dance?
So that's something I lifted off another flyer.
Mm-hmm.
It was very common when you look at the kind of historical flyers from the 70s and 80s to see things like security tight and polite, or security enough.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, because a lot of these events weren't taking place in like licensed premises because the Caribbean community didn't have access to nightclubs.
Yeah.
Because the system wasn't favorable and wasn't welcoming. So they were using places like community centers and halls where they'd have to provide their own security. And so that was a thing that was put on there.
Mm-hmm.
I've always preferred it if people kind of can enjoy the music and take it in properly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against people taking drugs. If they want to take drugs, that's entirely up to them.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that a roots dance is maybe not necessarily the right place for it. Certainly for harder drugs that people like, things that we don't have in England, like ice.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the place to be smoking ice.
Yeah.
It's just not really the vibe that we want. I don't really want any of that aggression. Like, cocaine is a big issue in the UK.
Yeah.
And you get that with a lot of kind of drum and bass events, particularly jump up drum and bass events in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be quite aggy. Also, I go to a lot of squat parties when I was younger, like illegal raves. Free parties is what we'd call them, where ketamine was a big thing, coke was a big thing, crack was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they get quite aggressive and aggy. And that's not the vibe I really want.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just liked it on the bottom of the flyer.
Yeah.
That's really where it came from. I mean, it's not, I don't want to tell someone how to, you know.
I think the focus really is when you say upful behaviour, that's more the focus. We're not telling anyone what to do.
Yeah.
When you come to our dances, you come as you are. Everyone's welcome. That's the philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much upful behaviour. So if you're enjoying yourself and, you know, you're minding your business and you're not ruining anyone else's night, that's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the full thing is all tribes welcome.
Yeah.
So no matter where you come from, I don't care who you are, what race, colour, creed, religion, whatever, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Come in the dance, have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to prejudice anybody. No mugs, no drugs, no thugs. Don't be a dickhead is essentially what that means.
Yeah.
And then strictly upful behaviour, again, don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, it's not very complicated. Respect each other.
Not that hard.
Yeah.
No.
It's just about being respectful and just trying to be a little bit more considerate than, say, the kind of attitude that people might take if they're going to, you know, a King Street nightclub meat market where they're only interested in drinking as many beers as they can drink and trying to harass people of the opposite sex. Or same sex, if that's what you're into. Don't care. Like, that whole kind of attitude that you get in those kind of commercial dance clubs is not the attitude that I want at my events.
Yes.
I want it to be more welcoming and to bring people in. But I totally understand that, you know, drugs have shaped a lot of music over a long time. We wouldn't have acid house. We wouldn't have acid techno. You know, we wouldn't have MDMA and ecstasy, you know, the whole Summer of Love thing, all that, the hippies creating what they created. I don't consider weed to be a drug. Yeah, that doesn't count in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. It's just, I want people to be respectful to each other, look out for each other, and just understand that there's a little bit of a higher level of behavior expected.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a saying in Soundsystem, you don't just build the boxes. When you build a DIY sound, you build up a community around you, and that's very much kind of the ethics behind it all. And people know when they come to our dances that, you know, it's a welcome space, it's a safe space, and you know, that's what we're trying to create for everyone.
Of course.
Also, mugs means, like, idiots,
Yeah.
foolish people. Because when I first put it on flyers and put it on Facebook, I had loads of people being like, "What? I can't bring my own cup, no tea, no coffee."
They're a mug.
Which is quite funny. I get the joke, but I don't think it's a word that's in the sort of Australian vernacular particularly.
No. Yeah.
But it's just carried on. It's just stayed on the flyer. You know, I've done the same flyer for years because I'm lazy and I don't want to change it.
If it's not broken, don't fix it. It works.
Yeah.
Very good. In an interview, Hough from Soundsystem speaks about a track that you produced alongside Maccabee. And what's your background in production and where are you with it today?
My background in production is pretty low. I can kind of noodle around on something and make a little bit of a drum beat, and Ableton's got very easy now.
Yeah.
You don't need to know how to play a keyboard.
Yeah.
But generally I've always worked with actual musicians, people who know what they're doing. That tune that he's talking about was actually produced with a guy called Slimmer Sound from Holland, Tim, who's a absolutely fantastic producer. He's got a label called Roots Tribe. Check out his music. It's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, the message in that tune is sort of very important, which is why he was talking about it. But in terms of production, I've been working on a couple of things with Seckleman from Melbourne. I really haven't done a lot for a long time because I haven't had time, and we've been doing crazy amounts of shows with the sound system, and I work a full-time job as well. So I just haven't had time to kind of delve into it. Built a studio, like a year and a bit ago, and we managed to make like 1.5 tunes in like 15 months or something because we just haven't had the time to do any extra work on it. So yeah, there's actually a remix of that Maccabee vocal, and there's a couple of other vocals that we want to put out that I've been working on with Seckleman, who's another Melbourne-based producer who makes fantastic music and is a seriously talented man. But in terms of being a production guy, it's not really my thing. I'm a sound man, so I do everything. You know, I MC, I select records, I tune sound systems, I build boxes, I organize dances, I promote. You know, I'll go on radio and talk about it. I'll do all the bits, but production is definitely one of the things that is at the lower end when it comes to knowledge. I know a little bit. It's mainly for my own enjoyment. It's not really for other people, to be perfectly honest. That one just happened to be really good. And that was because Tim did most of the work on it. 99% of the work on it. I just had an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you something, low on man ting, low on man ting. Let me tell you something, let me tell you something, low on man ting, low on man ting.
All right, so I'll probably move on to some questions for Fee as well. So where does your relationship to sound system culture begin for you?
Yeah, I guess it was a natural progression for us. I've just been, I started out in radio at the age of 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, New Zealand. That's where the name Housewife's Choice comes from. I had a radio show co-hosted when I was at high school with a couple of girlfriends. We ran a show called Housewife's Choice. That was sort of mid-90s. I moved to Melbourne 2001. And I revived the name Housewife's Choice when I met up with Baliaz in 2004 on a dance floor at More Fire, which we were talking about earlier, probably one of Australia's longest running reggae dance hall night.
Yeah, I think it ran for 22 years weekly. Sorry, monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Russ,
20 or
Crucial,
22 years.
GCI. Yeah. So I got here around the time that it had, I guess it was all kicking off around 2001.
Started 2001 May.
Yeah. So I've been here quite a while. As you can see, it's 2025. So yeah, I've based myself in Melbourne, but as well as those reggae dances, obviously there was Derek's Night, which the Dub Club Melbourne started around what year was that?
I believe it was 2007, but it's before my time.
So, so I guess that was probably my first proper taste of sound system. I'd say going to the Dub Club Melbourne nights. It's a blurry time in my life. I just remember I was around and, I was loving it. But, obviously traveling to the UK, seeing sounds like Channel 1, Abashanti, all the greats, Jar Shaka, of course.
That was a great dance.
Those dances probably, I think were the most inspiring for me. Obviously, locally, I'd been going out to dances, but traveling to the UK, it's kind of my spiritual home ground. It's for me, like for music, I love it. So I think, Adrian's he talked about it earlier. He arrived in Melbourne 2011. And that's where you really, saw since 2011, Soundsystem just kind of blew up overnight, really, because you saw Adrian's Wall, Derek Hardicourt come together. What year was it?
That was March 2012 or maybe May 2012.
Yeah.
So
we did the first dance with two sounds in one room in Australia. As far as we know, it may have happened way back in history, but in terms of the modern sound system scene, that was kind of the thing. And that dance, I think, opened people's eyes that other people could do it.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, it was a thing that Derek did, and other people were like, "Oh, there's that guy who does that thing."
Yeah.
And then I came along, and people were like, "Oh, there are more people who do this thing."
Right.
And then it suddenly became something that other people would.
I think, that you hit the nail on the head. That's for me, like seeing that was a real eye opener. And probably not at the time. I think it was closer to 2007, like a seed was planted where I started thinking, because I've been doing music for a very long time. I started off in radio. I've been running events, DJing, all sorts since the early 90s. And so, just going to sound system dances, going to dances in the UK. It kind of, it was all very much just a natural progression for us to, eventually build our own sound. But, I forget the question.
No, that's fine. They answered it. And so who makes up the Housewife's Choice Sound System crew?
Yeah, so it started off with myself and Baliaz. As I mentioned, we met in 2004. We had the recent addition of Anitra, only I think it was 3 years ago now. We all met, we were all booked to play at a festival in Goa in India, Goa Sunsplash. Anitra stood out to Baliaz and I because we were, very few females on the lineup. I think there was Sarah Lugo, Housewife's Choice. There might have been one other, I'm not sure. But we checked out Anitra and we were quite smitten with her. We all met up in the artist area and, it was an instant connection, very much like Baliaz and I in 2004. It was the same with Anitra. Anitra's actually originally from New Zealand, like myself. And around 2020, with COVID, that kind of forced her back over this way because she was actually living and working in India. Okay. She had been for probably about 4 years. She's a professional dancer, very creative, very talented. She was, I think, DJing and doing all sorts of film work and dancing at the time, but she was forced to move back this way, and we sort of took our shot and said, "Hey, why don't you, why don't you come over to Melbourne?" So next minute, she arrived. She got some work, and she joined the club. And we haven't looked back really. It's I think she was the fresh, younger kind of injection that we needed because we've been doing it for so long. Yeah. So very much welcome energy for us, and I think between us it's just a really amazing dynamic. Anitra, Yaz and myself, it's the three of us. We're the core members. Over the years we've had singers, we've had additional crew, people come through, and I always feel like, for example, Stacey, an old singer of ours back in the day when we were doing a lot of things together. We've had other people pass through on the mic, on the regular. Sahida Sarah, our sister who's overseas, when she's in town, she'll touch mic. I consider them always part of the family, but we are the core, Anitra, Yaz and myself, we're the core members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you might see other people join us from time to time, but that's Housewife's choice.
Beautiful. And so what, in your opinion, what is the significance of having an all-female crew in today's scene?
I think maybe the key thing for us is that we feel, very, I guess, what's the word? We feel quite strongly and passionate that we are able to contribute to not just the sound system scene, but the musical landscape in Australia, and bring that diversity to the scene. Because, as we know, I try not to focus too much on the fact that, a lot of people will say it's a very male-dominated scene in general, like the music industry, especially sound system. I kind of, I prefer to change the rhetoric and so I don't like to spin that side of it. I think we try to rewrite the story a little bit and just we love to bring that feminine energy and bring that that uniqueness that only a female can bring.
Yeah.
So that's what we love to do. And I think it shows, know. I think as women, we've got this kind of special innate way of being able to just bring this lightness and, sure that the competition's still there, but I think, I think you know what I mean.
yeah, for sure. So then, you were talking about starting in radio, and you've had a long history in radio, from community radio back in New Zealand to now Kiss FM on Sundays.
Yes.
So what is it like selecting for a physical audience compared to a radio audience?
The big thing for us is that, when we do our radio show every Sunday, like we all feel quite blessed to have that. It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's more like our time. Yeah. That's where we can play music. We'll play it in its entirety from start to finish. We really get to kind of just, enjoy the space and listen to full tracks. And just play stuff maybe that we wouldn't normally play. We're not playing to an audience because we're trying to make people dance or, it's not a 3 a.m. set where we have to keep the energy up,
Yeah.
It's being able to, I think, offer listeners, a variety of music, pass on a bit of knowledge while we're there, and for us, it's being able to play music to new ears as well, not just people we typically might play to in a dance. I love the fact that, at KISS, we get a lot of young ears that tune in, and I love the idea of opening, people up to music that they haven't heard before. So that kind of excites me, that possibility. But so it's quite different. Obviously, when we're in a dance, we play all sorts of dances as well, by the way, some might be a bit more dub reggae focused, others, it depends on the event. We're a little bit more fluid in the way we present, as opposed to, say, maybe like Adrian's Wall, who is strictly...
Yeah, I play roots and nothing but the roots.
So I'd say we very much represent, we play a lot of music under the Jamaican reggae banner, but we like to flex a lot of different styles as well. So But when we're on the sound, we very much, our sound is, when we're playing on the sound system, it's rooted in dub reggae.
Yeah.
That's the foundation.
Yeah.
And we might sort of venture into steppers and a bit of jungle and that kind of thing. Dance. Oh yeah, how could I forget dancehall? Reggae dancehall roots and culture. That's us. But we're very individual as well. You'll find us playing on our own, DJing around town, interstate, sometimes on the other side of the world. But we like to do our own thing as well. But when we're together, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Where did your love for reggae, dancehall, and roots begin for you?
I mean, I come from an island. I'm from New Zealand, so I think for me it's a mixture of, I grew up. Reggae was just always around me. I think in New Zealand you hear it everywhere.
Yeah.
And we very much support. Oh my God. We love our live music over there as well. A lot of reggae bands you'll find. Bob Marley visited New Zealand shortly before he passed away. He was welcomed by the Māori Queen. I've got a photo of that actually. I think that was quite a historic moment in time in New Zealand, and maybe cemented. I don't know. I think reggae is something quite special to a lot of people in New Zealand. I think maybe just it's kind of innate. It's as an island people.
Yeah.
I think we just adopted reggae music. It's sort of there in our blood. But also, as a Māori person on my mother's side, I've grown up just there's always someone strumming a guitar, singing.
Yeah.
When you get together and gather with your family, there's always songs. We celebrate a lot of our traditions growing up. Everything's done through talking and song and dance. So, when I moved to Melbourne, it was hard. It was quite a lonely process. It was something I needed and wanted to do. There was a lot more opportunity over this way. And just to grow as a young person as well, I arrived here when I was still quite young. But the one thing I think that was my solace was just something from home, I think, was just listening to reggae music. And I found that's when I actually started getting more seriously delving into reggae was actually when I came here. And so when I arrived in 2001, shortly after, I met Jesse I, and he was selling records at his little record store out of his house. And I just got really, because before that I've been a record collector for a long time since I was about 16, 15. I was collecting all sorts of music though, but it wasn't until I got to Melbourne that I started seriously collecting reggae music. So yeah, I always say, dance music and drum and bass jungle, that hip hop, that was my first love, but reggae is who I'm married to now. So yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So then what was the point, because you've been selecting and DJing for quite a few years. So what was the point you decided to build the sound system, and what was the inspiration for that?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, around 2007, that's when I think I started thinking about it. A seed was planted. I think because, after I met Adrian, sort of shortly after 2011, we got together and we started doing. I started getting quite involved in running and helping out with sound system events. And I got a lot of my teachings through Adrian, just through watching, and I love working with my hands, so not too technical up here, but I'm good with my hands, so I learned through doing. Over the many years and many sound system events, I started thinking, well, why let the boys have all the fun? And I started to think about maybe just building my own, because to be honest, a bit like most people who are, music nerds who love music, it was about wanting to play it the way I wanted to play it. And when you go out, not being kind of satisfied with maybe the music you're hearing or the quality, like the sound in the clubs and things like that. So it was like the other big thing for me was, I was thinking, because I was DJing full time at one point, and I was starting to think about, what's it going to look like for me as I get older? Like, I was thinking about how can I make this sustainable for myself moving forward into the future? Is it going to look like producing or making music, or what other things, can I do? And I really started to see a way forward with Soundsystem, because for me, it's very community orientated, and the idea of being able to be involved in events and dances that didn't involve just being in a nightclub, but actually, having the ability to own all my own equipment, do things the way I want to do, again, that whole DIY ethic, that grassroots, really, that is the sort of the key thing for me. And it was a scary time, because it's sort of like, where do I start? I had no idea, much like Adrian, I had no idea where to start, what to do, what I had to do. So I started going on forums, doing a lot of reading, a lot of researching. There's this thing called the PA Bible. That was a pretty confronting read for me, not going to lie. I still read it from time to time and it doesn't all make sense. But look, it's we're always learning. Just started. And for me, like I'm quite creative as well. So I maybe didn't start necessarily where other people did as well. I started kind of thinking of how I wanted the sound to look like and to sound like. So I started playing around and actually making 3D cardboard cutouts like of what I thought my sound system might look like. And it all started to feel quite real when I started playing around and and I started designing and doing some drawings and things like that. For me, I want very much a modern sound, but vintage aesthetic. So that's kind of what I was going for. I knew, but similar to Adrian with Channel 1, they've got a very nice warm sound, with the Fane. So that's kind of where I was thinking of heading. But, as everyone knows, once you might start one place and then end up in a completely different, direction or whatever. So, we've chopped and changed a bit. Started off with a little bit of secondhand gear. We're a 4-scoop stack run 5 ways with coaxial compression drivers for the tops. But as you may know, we are building up to 8 scoops.
Yeah, nice.
Well, they're built.
They're built, yeah. Well, as you can see, there's workstations everywhere here. The house is a bit of a mess. We've been busy over the last, I think, 4 months maybe, building like crazy to get these extra 4 scoops done. So, very exciting times.
Yes, very much so. Okay, so I've got a couple questions for, like, more general, so both of you are able to speak to it if you'd like. So you sort of touched on it a little bit, but how How have you seen the audience evolve over the years in Australia's sound system scene?
It's changed heaps.
Mm.
When we started, it was predominantly expat British people
Mm-hmm.
who knew about it because they'd experienced it in the UK.
Yeah.
Everyone who ran a sound at the start was British,
Mm-hmm.
or essentially, they'd grown up in the UK, experienced sound system in the UK, and then brought it over. Yeah, so everyone was expats basically, and then we were looking at, you go to the dances and you talk to the people who knew the music,
Mm-hmm.
and they were Italians, French, Spanish, British, very few Jamaicans.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sassy was really the only person who came out to dances back then. And most of the music that was getting played was predominantly UK or European
Mm-hmm.
produced with Jamaican singing or artists on it, particularly on the sound system side of it.
Yeah.
It was much more on the steppers dub kind of thing. And I think that with Derek doing Wobble, which was the drum and bass dubstep night that he was doing at the same venue as he was doing Dub Club Melbourne, that really opened a lot of people's eyes to it, and that brought a lot of the kind of younger Australian sort of people in their late teens and early 20s, people who were going out to a rave, brought them into the sound system culture and into a proper roots dance, and they started to experience it and get their head around it as a concept. So you started getting people who were big into dubstep and big into drum and bass finding the sort of foundation that created those musics off it. And then gradually, as the communities expanded and as Australians have started to become more involved in building sound systems and crafting their own sound, the sound has changed. And with that, the audience has changed.
Yeah.
We've all got old because we've been doing it for a long time and we're not in our 20s anymore. And the next generation has come up and they are starting to come in. You've got people like, yourself and your community who are starting to come to dances, and they're starting to see this thing and understand it's a little bit deeper and a little bit more involved than just a bunch of pop music.
Yeah.
And I think that people resonate with the authenticity of it. And yeah, I mean, there's been certain events that have kind of blown it up and where we've reached larger audiences. Derek's Sydney Road Carnival was a big one for that because it was huge. It was a huge event.
Everyone, please. Understand. We're on the top to the very last drop. This one. Urban style.
I think the biggest one probably had 12 or 1,500 people at it.
Oh my God.
He had 16 scoops in
And it was free.
a car park. It was free entry. It was outside as like a renegade as part of a community event. So the council put the event on with its 3 or 4 stages or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Derek did his thing, and people would check out the council sanctioned stuff and then see the renegade thing and go, wow, what's this?
Yeah.
And that brought a lot of people into it.
It was definitely like something on the calendar we used to look forward to every year.
Yeah, it's massive. And that weekend still, I think every weekend since I've been here, I mean, I wasn't here for it at the last one because I was playing a show in Mullumbimby, but Redback Sound took their sound out and did a renegade
Yeah, I was there
drum
for
and
that
bass,
one as well.
and that party looked dope.
Really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it
really
looked
good.
awesome. And big up Jacko every time.
I will say I think community radio plays a really important role. Having the support of certain people in community radio is huge for us as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like we were saying, personally for our dancers, we don't see our typical reggae followers coming out. Not necessarily. There's a lot of like new faces and people that we don't recognise, like from dance to dance.
Yeah.
And but they know us. They know us through radio or various other platforms, or just coming out to things like Forward Ever. But yeah, I will say I think community radio plays a really important role in us being able to reach our community as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was massive for opening people's ears to it. I mean, Derek had his show on PBS back in the day. Obviously, Jesse's been running his show since forever.
Yeah, you've got Sister Baby on Triple R.
Yeah.
Big up Sister Baby every time.
Yeah, smashing it. And Blue Juice as well.
Blue
Low hair.
Juice, yeah. And also another late night show on Mondays on PBS, yeah.
The Blend.
The Blend.
Yeah, Bevan and Emmeline and Beatski
Because
supporting the sound system hard.
the thing is, for a very long time, around the days of, when Hardcore was running things, there was a reason, like there was one venue and one sound system at the time. It was very hard, and it still is quite hard to get into venues. So when we do have venues, we just recently did a whole summer series of sound system events every Sunday for how many weeks?
12.
12 weeks in a
3
row.
months.
Nuts. That was at Three Ravens in Thornbury. But, venues like this, community radio platforms, they are crucial for us to be able to maintain and do what we do.
I think a big thing also is that, yes, I put on a big Forward Ever event that costs $30 or $40 to come to because it's 3 or 4 sound systems or a big venue with high overheads.
Yeah.
We pay a fortune for the venue. We pay a fortune for security and ticketing and all that stuff. And we're still half the price of any other show at that venue.
Yeah.
Because I do want to keep the shows as cheap as possible. But then we also do free events.
Yeah.
Sydney Road has always been free.
Mm-hmm.
We've never charged for a show at Sydney Road, except for once when we had YT, which was 2015. And even then it was $10 on the door,
Right.
which is cheap.
Yeah.
For an international and 3 sound systems. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And then, I do my Hail Hymn party, which is a big Rastafarian session in around, it'll be, the last couple have been at Q Street, but yeah, it's moved around. It was at Grumpy's a couple of times. It's been various venues, but it's always around July 23rd, which is when Haile Selassie was born. Yeah. Which is a big day in the Rastafarian calendar. And again, trying to keep those events free so that people can come out and engage with it has helped the audience grow and helped bring in younger people because there is a financial pressure there and people can't afford to spend $30, $40 to come to a show, especially if they don't know what they're going to be getting. Yeah. You should come to this. It's really loud and heavy and you'll have a great time. That's $40, man. I don't have $40. When you're 19 years old, that's a big barrier. So I think the fact that people do put
and this, this, for example, the summer sessions that we just ran, it meant that a lot of our community, who have now have babies and families and dogs and, that sort of thing, it gives them the ability to come out and be a part of it. Not everyone can come out at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So, yeah.
Oh, Raph. Yeah, babysitters, the fact that we could do those Sunday sessions that were free and they were family friendly and you could bring your kids and your dogs and things like that meant that people who struggle to make it out to the big events because getting a babysitter is expensive and difficult. And if you want to stay out till 2 o'clock in the morning, then that's a serious commitment from somebody to look after your children. That opens that up and it allows the community to grow, and that also starts seeing the next generation come through.
I've also noticed a bit of cross pollination. It's not like how it used to be with strictly reggae crowd anymore. There's a lot of crossover. I think in Melbourne we do really celebrate each other. I think you'll notice, say for example, crews like people coming over from New Zealand and such, they'll see that we work together quite a lot. We're not sort of working on our own. We're working with other crews. Where possible, we try not to clash. But so you will see people not just going to forward ever dances, but they'll be going to the various different, supporting other crews and sounds as well. So there's a lot of crossover with music and crowd.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And one of the other things I was going to say was actually at your 21st birthday party the other week, when I was standing at the door giving out flyers, I had a young man come up to me, and I'm going to guess he's about 20. And he was like, my friend's mum. And I was like, yeah, who's your friend's mum? And he was like, oh, it's a lady called Mamacita Bonita. And I was like, I know Bonnie. We've known each other since I arrived, basically. Like 3 or 4 months after I arrived, I met her. She's great, absolutely fantastic DJ. But like her kids are now coming to our parties, which is just, it's cool to see that generational thing
for sure.
like carry on. And the fact that they're identifying, people of that generation are identifying that we're doing something alternative and it's got a bit more substance and a bit more depth and everything. I think it's really good. And the other thing I was going to say is that nowadays I feel like, because music is so available with things like Spotify and YouTube and things like that, that the young people that are about today, that makes me sound so old, are much more musically diverse in their tastes.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, you listened to either pop music or metal.
Yeah.
That was it. When I was 13, 14 at high school, start of high school, you either listened to whatever was broadcast on Radio 1, which was straight NSYNC and Take That and Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Or you listened to Korn and Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
And that was basically the two groups. And then as we got older, we started to diversify and get into other things. But nowadays you talk to kids and they'll like hip hop, they'll like rock and roll, they'll like a pop song, they'll, love Taylor Swift, but in the same breath, they'll be playing the latest Noisia release or a drum and bass tune or techno, and they'll have knowledge, like deep knowledge of music that when we were kids, we just couldn't do that because it was so expensive to buy records that you couldn't commit to more than one genre. If you tried to commit to more than one genre, you just spread yourself so thin with the little resources that you had and the little music that you had access to. And I think that's really benefited us with the sound system thing, and also with the sound systems playing different music. We're seeing these younger guys coming through and girls putting on park parties and things like that, and they're playing a whole variety of music, stuff I don't even know what the genre is called, and it is awesome that they're doing that. It's really good, and it makes me feel confident that in 20, 30 years, we're still going to have these communities going, these events going, these people doing dope stuff, putting great parties on, playing proper underground music. Doesn't have to be roots music. That's where I come from. But the sound system scene in Australia will evolve and it will become its own thing.
Yeah.
Just like sound system in Brazil is different from sound system in France, is different from sound system in England, or sound system in Jamaica, or in Thailand, or in India, or in Ghana, or in South Africa. It's different everywhere, and it's because it goes there as a thing and then it morphs with the local environment and it becomes a product of its environment and it will grow on to become something. And so we've seen the scene diversify and grow, and it's fantastic that it's doing that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more information sharing nowadays than there was. I think there was a little bit of maybe gatekeeping.
There was a lot of gatekeeping.
I won't get
gatekeeping.
too into that. I don't want to start any fires. But I think, with the internet and all, technology and stuff as well. But I think, very much here anyway, there's a lot more information sharing. So I think people who sort of are interested and wanting to know a bit more, because before, it's very hard to get plans and things online. It literally just wasn't possible. But nowadays, it's
I mean, when Derek built his first sound system, he built it out of a book that Chris Virus gave him. That's how he got the plans, because there weren't plans on the internet, because the internet wasn't really a thing in 2002, 2003 when he started building. Certainly the information wasn't readily available like it is nowadays. I mean, there was a period where I went through and I used to print speaker plans and put them at the front door of the parties, so that when you came into the party, you could pick up a flyer for the next event and instructions on how to build a speaker, because we needed more people to build speakers. And I've always been super anti-gatekeeping when it comes to information about how you run sound systems, where to get equipment. I've said it a million times at my dances. If you want to build a sound system, hit me up and I'll share what I know with you. You know, I'm not gonna do the work for you. But I'll be able to point you in the direction and save you wasting money on things and making the same mistakes that I did, because I had to learn the hard way. And I think that attitude has helped, and it's propagated through, because people that I helped build their sound systems have helped other people build sound systems. And those people will help more people, and they'll help more people. And I think that's really a really good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So building on that as well, do you think that Australia is carving out its own identity within the wider sound system culture, like you were saying?
100%.
So then how would you characterize it, and what would set it apart from the rest of the world?
That's a good question. How would we characterize it? That's a difficult one. I think it's still finding its feet. I think it hasn't quite, it's still like the big sounds are still the ones that are established and have been around for a long time. And therefore, you know, people like me and Derek and Housewives and Virus and like the guys who've been doing it for 15 plus years. And I think that once the current generation get another 10 years behind them, when we start seeing, you know, Aussie built sound systems running music for 10 plus years, because most of them, you know, they've been doing it for 3 or 4 or maybe 7 or 8. But once they get a bit further, it's just time. It just takes time for things to happen. Just like it happened when Jamaicans moved to the UK, and it was very, very Jamaican until, you know, sort of 10 years later, when the UK started to change the way people were writing music and things like that. So I don't think it has its own identity yet. I think it's on the process to getting there. I think it's going to become an amalgamation of various cultures. Like Australia has a very strong duff culture, and we're starting to see DIY sound system, particularly Paraflex, in WA, which doesn't have a big sound system culture or sound system community. Really, they've only started doing events over there in the last couple of years. We're starting to see the DIY sound system stuff move into the psytrance and the bush techno and that kind of community. We're also getting that in Victoria, out in the...
I think here there's such a melting pot of different, like, diverse cultures in that as well. So you've got your Brazilian community, South American, you know, you're seeing all these sort of cumbia outfits and various things. So I think you'll see that it's a representation of all those kind of cultures, you know, representing and doing things in their way. You know, like I think sound system and as a whole, it's kind of, you know, as it moved to the UK in the 60s with the
Duke Vin and Coxon and all them.
With the Windrush kind of generation, you'll see, you know, it's kind of spread to different parts of the world, like Australia, and it's taken on its own meaning, and it means different things to different people in a sense. Like, you know, for me, when we play our sound, representing myself and my culture is always kind of at the forefront. Yes, we play a lot of Jamaican music and reggae, but we very much, you know, bringing our own identity into it. So I think you'll see that again with those different sort of communities, like I was mentioning it before. And also, like I say, culturally, it means different things.
Yeah.
you know, for example, not just for me, but like the music the people that we're playing to, people who have come from maybe the UK, Jamaica. It's kind of that real sense of belonging and being able to have somewhere to go to come together and have that culture that kind of identifies them and ties in with where they've come from.
Mm-hmm.
It's like equally important, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, like I was giving out flyers outside a party the other week, and this English guy was like, "Oh, who are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm Adrian, Adrian's Wall." He was like, "Oh, I got told about you in England because I wanted to come and find Soundsystem, and I knew that got told that you were the one to find. And,
Yeah, right.
you know, you find that, and then you come to this dance." I was like, "Yeah, we'll come to this dance, and you'll get flyers for all the other dances.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, do this, that, and the other." But it's
I've noticed that's a big thing. I'm noticing more and more people from overseas coming, hearing about dances happening. So when they land, they know that they can come catch a for whatever, or Adrian's Wall is the person to go see or talk to.
Yeah.
Things like that, or people will come up to me and you know, they might come from somewhere where, you know, sound system culture is huge, again, like maybe the UK. So they're just so happy to be able to find it here, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool.
Cool. And then, so what do you think that modern club and dance culture can learn from sound system culture?
authenticity.
Yeah.
Don't sell out for a vodka brand.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a lot of like, you see these kind of things on Instagram and whatever, and it's like some poor DJ playing house music to like 1,000 phones.
Yeah.
And no one's dancing, and it just looks depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I don't know a lot about club culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't been to a club outside of a sound system party for a long time. A very long, like over a decade. Because this is what I do.
Yeah.
I don't have time
Yeah.
to go check in, you know, a techno night. I just don't have the time unless it's on a sound system.
Yeah.
In which case I'll go check it out. But I think authenticity is the big thing. We kind of had that thing in the 2000s where there was all the money and bling and it was all very show offy, and people had brand deals and, you know, sponsorships and
One thing I will say though is something that comes to mind is when we did the first Heavy Congress. What year did we start working on that?
2020.
2020. That was, you know, a work that ended up taking about 2 years to kind of come to fruition. It started out with a guy called Jason Mailing, Chris from Northside. They came up with this crazy idea, this concept. And then they reached out to people like ourselves, Housewives Choice, Adrian's Wall, Derek Hardicle. So we were kind of the core founding group. There were a couple of other people involved there as well. And obviously lockdowns, et cetera, sort of happened. But I guess where I'm going with that is that I feel like that was a really significant time in sound system here, where once we were able to finally make it come to fruition, it ended up being at the Forum in 2022.
Yeah.
That's kind of the short story, not the long version, but I feel like that really gave sound system a platform. And for the first time, personally, I felt like we were we'd kind of brought it up to almost like the mainstream, where it was like the general public were for the first time properly experiencing sound system.
Today is a celebration of sound system culture. So we come step with the first dub plate from we tonight. Voice of my good brethren, Y to the letter T.
Yo, this is Adrian. Welcome to the entire globe. lobe, you know. I mean, letter white to the lyrics guaranteed straight to the frontal lobe, you know. Sound system culture, we said this is Adrian's wild sound, you know, from the school of the daddy. Man like Cox and Dad, man like Duke Reed, all of the sound system family. Representing. Big up our sound man everywhere. Adrian's wild, when you can told them start. This kind of music cannot be listened on only a smart speaker. We need a big old 18 inch scoop in the videos and the Twitter. Adrian's wild, when we look at tell them.
Because what Heavy Congress was essentially was, I think it was 10 sounds?
10.
So we had 10 sounds come together in one venue. It was like, to pull that off, it was nuts. Like, oh, that's right, we had DIY and were involved, weren't they?
Yeah, there's loads of sounds.
Yeah.
I'd have to go get
10
the
sounds
t-shirt
all up.
to tell you everyone who played, because I can't remember.
But it was a lot of work. It was like, there was a lot of meetings and just like so much work, and we pulled it off. But I think it really kind of elevated sound system, and like just being able to see the general public come through and experience sound system. And then it was kind of it was after that I know, you saw just sound system started becoming kind of like a general topic. Like people started learning what it was. That's when we started seeing more people kind of coming out to dances and things. And I found that people were reaching out to us to do stuff, people who we just wouldn't have ever dreamed of or expected. We've done crazy things. When I think back over, we've only been like, as a whole, we've been running for 21 years as a crew, longer individually. As a sound, Housewives' Choice, we've been running for 4 years now. And I just think about what we've done in that short space of time. We've been into Acme, we've been into, boutique restaurants in the middle of the city.
Restaurants with $100,000 bottles of wine.
Uptown top ranking.
Wow.
And for me, I love that challenge. I love being able to go into places that you just wouldn't expect, and just breaking down barriers, and, just, I don't know, because it's for so long we've just not been able to take our sound into places and do these things. But just opening it up to the wider public, and and now you're seeing sound system pop up in all sorts of places. Like
man, the Wiggles did a sound system tour.
Really?
Yeah, they did like a kids rave thing, and they called it the Wiggles sound system. They had because it was a term that was in popular culture, and we noticed after Heavy Congress that about 2 or 3 months after it, that when you went to a venue and you said, "Hey, we want to do a sound system party," the people in the venue would know what you were talking about. Whereas for the 15 years that I'd been doing it before that, I had to explain every single time. I used to take a PowerPoint presentation with me because it was easier to explain it to people, to show them videos and pictures and stuff, and not have to do it on a phone, do it on a computer. Because you were talking to these venue owners and they had no concept of what was. They were like, "Oh, it's a reggae night," and it's like, "Well, yeah, but not what you're thinking."
We're still educating people. Like when you say, "Oh, we've got our own equipment," we're not bringing in amps and guitars. Well, we are bringing in amps, but they'll say yes, but you really have to spell it out for them, because when they see you, like you show up and they see these big 18-inch scoops and they start freaking out. So we've had to really educate people over these
like sound
past
techs
years.
at venues who are like, "Oh yeah, you can plug into our PA as well." It's like, I don't need your PA, mate.
Literally, just show me where the
point.
3-phase power is, and we'll do the rest. Like we've really had to spell it out for people. Like, no, you can't touch my equipment. This is a custom built sound. So only myself, or our crew operate it, and. Even right down to stacking the boxes. Like we won't let someone outside of our crew stack the boxes, because they, you need to know what you're doing. And how to lift and carry. And
I lost a driver because of a roadie that was employed by a venue, dropped a box and shifted the magnet. It happens. And they didn't know how heavy the box was. And it's 110 kilos, and you can't lift that on your own. You need 2 people. Yeah, but on the subject of like what dance culture could get or like club culture could get from sound system is that, you know, it's quality of curation,
Mm-hmm.
it's being authentic, not just lowest common denominator, you know, $5 shots or
Yeah.
$2 pots or whatever it is to get punters through the door. It's about curating something that's actually got some substance to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know because I don't go to them, but I feel like for a period there was in club culture that it felt very commercial, very disposable.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly didn't have it. I had no interest in it.
Yeah.
And I think that would benefit them. And also paying attention to the quality of sound, because the number of venues that I go into and the sound is garbage.
Yeah.
And it's not that there's anything wrong with the equipment; it's just set up badly.
Yeah.
And venues won't spend money on on employing a regular sound tech.
Yeah.
I used to do it when I first arrived in Melbourne. I used to go. My day job is professional PA.
Yeah.
And like when I say, I mean seriously big audio installations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about speakers on sticks here. I'm talking about massive.
$1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like big stacks of speakers for big venues.
Yeah.
And there's so many clubs where you go to it and they've got 12 different sound techs on roster,
Mm-hmm.
and a guy will go in and he'll have been there a month before and everything's changed and everyone's changing processor settings and everyone's changing this and the other. And you just need one good head who's going to sit there and learn the room, learn what the equipment can do, slowly adjust it over time,
Yeah.
understand that the settings for drum and bass need to be different than the settings for techno.
Yeah.
And you can't just have a one catch-all solution. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
My system's built to play reggae and dub, roots music. It does not sound good playing techno. It doesn't. It has
Yeah.
way too much sub and it sounds unbalanced.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I lived with a guy who played psytrance, and we tried playing psytrance on the sound system. It sounded awful.
Yeah.
And that was because of the sound system, because it's not the right speaker boxes for the music.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, Clubland could learn from taking that on board and actually employing people to make sure the sound is good, like proper staff.
Yeah.
Like you have a venue manager or a bookings manager who works there for 5 years or 3 years or whatever. They need sound techs that work there for 3 years, rather than treating them like these disposable fly-in people.
Yeah.
You pay $30 an hour to, and they don't really care.
Yeah.
They're only there to get paid, and they're losing their Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be a really big movement for them to just improve the sound quality.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so yeah, final question. For any young people aspiring to be a part of the scene, do you have any advice to help achieve longevity within such a demanding industry?
Okay. Longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It occupies my entire life. I've been doing it every day, every minute of every day for 17 years.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine stopping. And that's because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to music on the way to work. I listen to music all the way at work whilst I'm at work. I listen to it when I come home. I listen to it before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
It occupies every waking minute of everything that I dedicate to it. You got to love it. If you want to get into it from the kind of most basic, I want to get involved in sound system and whatnot, come to shows,
Mm-hmm.
introduce yourself,
Mm-hmm.
say good day, offer to come lift boxes, offer to come down early. There used to be this term, doesn't really exist as much anymore because the sound systems aren't run as crews like they used to be. Because they used to run 20, 30 people deep, and we don't have the numbers here in Melbourne to be able to do that. But there's a term that was box boy.
Yeah.
And that was the first job you got, was that you lifted boxes and it got you a free ticket and it got you into the event. Particularly back then, if you were underage.
Yeah.
Now, because it's 2025 and facial recognition and ID scanning and everything, we can't really do that. I do wish we could do more all ages shows, because that would benefit us. But yeah, come along, be enthusiastic, ask questions. People will show you.
Yeah.
People want to help people. They want to teach people. And we love sharing that information with people. That's definitely the best way to get involved
Mhm.
on kind of like a first entry step level. If you really want to build a sound system and you want to go down that route, there's a couple of different options. I would say build it yourself.
Mhm.
You'll have a much better relationship with your speaker boxes than if you pay somebody else to build it for you.
Mhm.
You also stand a much better chance of doing it long term. I've seen a lot of people pay people to build them speaker boxes, and then they burn out after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And not everyone is going to last forever. Also, don't think that because you built a sound system, you're suddenly entitled to be playing to 1,000 people.
Mhm.
Just like if you go and get some decks and you start DJing, you're not entitled to be playing at Ultra or
Mhm.
Coachella or whatever the big festival is. You have to take your time. You have to dedicate time to it, put work in, and it's like playing an instrument. You know, a sound system is an instrument, and it takes time and effort.
The other thing is, once you build, it doesn't stop there. The work never ends. We're always bleeding money and fixing things and having to upgrade and all those things. So the work never ends really. So don't think that if you build some boxes, it's just it's going to be all roses after that. There's just the work never ends really. It's
It only starts once you built your boxes.
Yeah.
And
it's not for the faint-hearted. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Allow a year. If you're going to actually build a sound system, allow a year. It will take you a year from the minute you buy your first sheet of plywood to when you actually set it up and it all works and it sounds good.
Yeah.
And you've got you understand the concepts behind what's going on.
Mhm.
But go to dances, meet the people who are playing the music that you like, talk to them.
I
hang
think
out.
it goes back to the question you were sort of asking earlier as well, because I relate to Adrian's answer in that it was never really a conscious decision
Yeah.
as such. Like, when I started out, like mid-90s, for years, I was collecting records from around age of 15. And for years, I never called myself a DJ. I did radio for years. I started getting asked to play at house parties and things.
Mhm.
Then I started getting booked. I never looked to kind of go out and do it. I just started these opportunities because I'd been collecting records, etc. I started getting these opportunities, started playing out, and it just kind of spiraled. And I think, I never really knew where necessarily I was going. It was just something kind of that was driving me, like this natural kind of force, and the passion. You have to have the passion, and I think the determination. And one thing I'll say as well is, there's got to be times, especially in this sort of area, this field, where you're not always going to feel confident, but you have to just have confidence in yourself. Like, when I started building and took that first step, even now, there's days where I think, what the hell am I doing? Oh my God. Like, you can't compare yourself to others because there's so many people around me that are so knowledgeable, and it can be quite intimidating sometimes, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But, I say to other women and other people that, might ask me similar questions. I think the key thing is there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of talk around you. Don't compare yourself to others. You just have to have that confidence and that kind of passion and desire to want to do it.
Mhm.
But it takes a lot of hard work. But we it's just been an ongoing thing, and it's it's a natural progression. I think I don't think it's I want to be a DJ, or I want to do this. I don't think I would have ever dreamed of doing sound system early stages because I wasn't there yet. Personally, for me, I think I wanted to sort of earn those stripes in a sense. I wanted to do it the proper way and get to a point where I felt like, I was ready for the next step. I really wanted to build up to 8 scoops from the start, but I said to myself, no, I'm going to start with just 4 scoops. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this and that I am doing dances and I'm doing enough dances to warrant building up to 8 scoops. Because what's the point of having 8 scoops if you've got nowhere to play it, or like you're kind of half-assed about it. So it's sort of like now 4 years later, I feel like, we've kind of proven, we're not proving it to anyone else. We've proven to ourselves that, we're on the right track and we're just loving every minute of it. It was the right decision, and like what next, basically,
Yeah. I was just going to say, not necessarily just sound system, but I've been around the music industry for a long time.
Yeah.
Both professionally, like in my day job, and as a hobby. And a lot of my friends are involved in music and have, gone on to become successful musicians and make a living out of music, which is increasingly becoming more and more difficult. Yeah. And I've had a couple of friends actually have sort of breakout hit records where they've, they've learnt a musical instrument as a child at school, got to 17, 18, managed to get a deal, put a single out. The single's done quite well, and they've suddenly catapulted into fame. Or not, I don't know people who've gone like Justin Bieber levels of fame, but people who've sold like 50,000 copies of a record and things like that. And with a lot of the people, in fact, every single person I know who's managed to do that, they basically all burnt out.
Yeah.
The people who successfully managed to maintain themselves in the music industry are the people who started small and slow, and they've just gradually kept going up and up and up. And most of them work as session musicians.
Yeah.
The race is not for the swift, but who can endure it.
Yes.
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you can't force it. You have to love it. You just have to let it happen. And if it's going to become, your whole life and how you make your living, I've got a couple of friends now, people I went to school with, one of whom just toured Australia, the same age as me, 41. We were making music on a PlayStation when we were 15 years old.
Yeah.
Now they're signed to a major drum and bass label putting out phenomenal music.
Yeah.
But that took 25 years. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to, like, if you do manage to get to tour the world in the first couple of years, then be very careful who you're around and what they're telling you and stuff, because if you want longevity, you need to really put the time and work in for it.
Yeah.
I think, for Housewives' Choice as a crew, I guess in terms of longevity, I can only really reflect on my own experiences, but I think as a crew, I think that's kind of probably be one of the secrets to maybe, our success in terms of still doing what we love and having so much fun, is that we bring our own strengths to the table, and there's that shared love. And because we have each other to look up to in different ways, we kind of are always constantly trying to level up. Like, it's like, oh, okay, she's doing that. All right. Like, you can't kind of just rest for too long and get complacent. You do, you always have to be looking out for like fresh music, new music, practicing, all those things that kind of come with it, like I definitely know when I haven't had a mix for a while, I get a bit dusty and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to you have to love it.
Yeah.
Don't try and do it because you think it's the latest cool thing.
Yeah.
Do it because you love it.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on at all? It's been a good chat, so.
Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of different topics. I just want to encourage people to build sound systems.
Yeah.
That's really what I want. I just want more people doing it, more people doing dope things. Don't feel like you've got to get, pigeonholed into a genre. Don't feel like, Adrian does it this way with one turntable and he only plays vinyl and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the music source. It doesn't, as long as it sounds good and as long as you're having fun. That's really the most important thing. And do it for yourself. Like, do it because you're having fun and you're enjoying it. The community support, DIY. You don't have to bow to Babylon. You don't have to follow their rules. You don't have to stick with their things. That's kind of the big message for me. That's what I want from people who are involved in this. And if you do need information, ping me a message. You know, I'm happy to share what little I know.
Yeah.
I think, do it for the right reason as well, you know.
No one's getting rich from reggae music.
No.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Or sound system. Even when you look at the UK and you look at, you know, the hundreds and probably thousands of sound systems across the UK, there's only really 4 or 5 that are actually making a living out of it. Yeah. Maybe 10. In the whole of England. A country that's, 6 times the population of Australia? And has 60 years of history with the style, with the...
I mean, we know that any creative, really, whether it's music, arts, etc., we generally have another job. You know, it's hard. It's not really necessarily, not everyone has the luxury of making a living off it. But, yeah. I
mean, I made a conscious decision years ago not to make a living off it, that I didn't want to. Yeah. I watched people I knew in bands get record deals and get absolutely eaten alive by major record companies, go on tours and come back and be told that they owe the record company £10,000, which is ridiculous. It's an exploitative industry.
For us, you know, there's, you know, a lot of crazy madness in the world, especially today. And I think it's really important to kind of be that shining light in these times of kind of darkness and sadness and, you know, with everything that's going on, that, you know, just playing the music with a message. You know, bringing that positivity into a space and, you know, being able to like share that with other people and people who come to our dances, they bring that energy as well. It's a reciprocal thing, you know, and I think like as a community, I'm not just talking about our community, but on a global sort of, level as well. I think it's one way that we can try and spread positivity and love, you know, with all the other stuff that's going on. We certainly, it's not just about entertainment, is what I think probably my end message is for us. You know, yes, we have a great time, we love it, but it's not just about entertainment. It's about spreading that positive message. And we get so much out of the music. It gives us a lot, so we like to give back and
So big up each and everyone for coming out. Understand the message is love. I stand with Rastafari, but it doesn't matter who you stand with. If you stand with Christ, if you stand with Buddha, if you stand with the flying spaghetti monster, we're not partial. As long as you walk good, you look after your friends, and you spread a message of love. That's all that we ask. So stand firm, walk good, look after everybody, make sure your friends get home safe. Make sure when you leave here you spread a message of love, and we'll see you at the next dance. So we say guidance. We say guidance. Thank you so much. We love you.